Welcome to Black Tech Fest 2024. Can I hear you make some noise? Okay, that's more like it. Though there may be few of us, we're going to make it feel like there's many, okay? We're going to make the other stages jealous. That is the goal. So I would love to introduce myself. My name is Deborah Chosen. I am a host, a presenter, and a marketing girly. And today I have the pleasure of being your host here on the Build stage all day long. Say all day long. All day long, that's right. So we're going to have some fun, okay? I'm very much so looking forward to this. So the Build stage is dedicated to entrepreneurs, investors, policymakers, and SMEs. This is the place to hear from trailblazing founders, investors, and those who truly shape the future of our ecosystem. Now, I know that many of you will have come here with different goals and different expectations, right? Maybe some of you are here in the hopes that you're going to land your next role. Some of you might be hoping to bump into the next best investor. But I came with one goal and one goal only, okay? I have a dream. I have a dream. Do you want to know what the dream is? Oh, you guys don't sound like you want to know what the dream is. So what's that dream, Deborah? I'm glad you asked. So my dream and my one and only dream, it's an ambitious one, is that one day the Build stage will be the loudest stage at Tech Fest. Can we do that? Oh, you guys don't look like you have faith in this. Come on, I think today's all about aiming high and reaching for the sky. So I came with this goal. We are going to aim to be the loudest stage here today. And so what's that going to mean? That's going to mean I'll need your energy, your love, your support. As every single speaker comes to the stage, we're going to light up the room for them. Can I have your promise on that? Okay, awesome. Right, so today, of course, is all about being here and celebrating tech amongst Black people. So we are here at Black Tech Fest, which is the largest diverse tech event in Europe where culture and innovation intersect. I would love to say a huge thank you, first and foremost, to our sponsors, Google. We can give a round of applause. And our accessibility sponsors, JP Morgan Chase. A couple of announcements from me as well. Please do check out the food court. I know breakfast is probably just gone, but there's going to be food all day long at the food court, so do take advantage of that. If you don't, I will, okay? And also, there is the AI and Risk BDO Roundtable, which is situated around there. This is by invite only. So if you haven't heard of this, then you can look for more information on the website. But at this roundtable, you'll be able to hear from our partners, BDO, as they discuss how to harness the potential of AI. And of course, it wouldn't be a Black event without an after party, right? Okay, so there will be an after party this evening, which will begin at 5:30 p.m. And this is brought to you by Uber. So we have a very exciting lineup in store for you, from panels to fireside chats. Plus, this afternoon, right here on this stage, we will have our pitch showcase, where we'll be exhibiting innovative solutions from up-and-coming entrepreneurs. So prepare to be inspired. So before we get into things, I just want to get a quick show of hands and get a feel for who is in the room. So how many founders do I have in the room? Do I have any founders? Let me hear you say, whoop, whoop. Okay, 3 of you, wonderful. And do we have any entrepreneurs? Any entrepreneurs in the room? Yep, okay. Any aspiring founders? Anyone that maybe you hope to have found your own business one day, you hope to start a business? Yeah, we've got a hand there. Thank you, Dama. And do we have any investors? Any investors? Anyone that came with, okay. That was the time to look, by the way. That was the key time, because that's where the money's at. Sorry. So the good news is that whether you are here today as an investor, a founder, an entrepreneur, or you simply just came to learn more, we have something for everyone. So I'm excited to introduce the first panel to the stage. They are here waiting, lovely, looking gorgeous as ever. So this session is going to be answering the question, where are the Black and underrepresented VCs and investors? So what you can expect from this panel is a discussion that will address the lack of diversity among VCs and investors. We will be exploring the barriers faced by underrepresented groups and discussing strategies to create a more inclusive investment landscape. So please welcome to the stage, chairing the conversation, Edwin Appiah, general partner at Cornerstone VC. Please put your hands together for Edwin. Please bring a warm welcome for partner at LocalGlobe, Remus Brett. And joining our speakers, I'm also pleased to welcome to the stage, partner at Bethnal Green Ventures, Dama Sathianathan. And last but not least, of course, the founder and managing partner at Black Seed. Give it up for Karl Lokko. You're welcome, Karl. Welcome. So over to you, Edwin, and enjoy the conversation.
Thank you so much, Deborah. Hopefully everyone can hear me. Please give me a nod or a shake of a hand, thumbs up. Brilliant, thank you. Okay, so no, Deborah rightly said this is going to be an exciting conversation. We want to talk about
We're watching you on
representation
on the Zoom call,
across the investment landscape.
I'm just going to open up the chat just in case you put stuff in there.
Investors within investment committees. But before we get into it, I think it's important that we introduce ourselves so you know who we are. I'll start off before I hand it over to my beautiful and lovely panel. My name is Edwin Appiah. I am a founding general partner at Cornerstone VC. Cornerstone VC, for those of you who don't know, we are a venture capital fund with a diversity and ethnicity lens. So we focus on backing the best and the best black and diverse founders across the UK. We are sector agnostic, but we are very, very, I guess, fixated on business models. And I guess from the last 2 years since we've been around, we have about 14 businesses in our portfolio. And of those 14 businesses, 70% of them identify as coming from an ethnicity background, 30% come from or have a gender representation, and 35% are based outside of London. So that's a little bit about me, but I would love to hand over to my panel. Shall we start with you, Karl?
Good morning, everybody. I'm Karl Lokko, founder and managing partner at Black Seed. And Black Seed is a black-led firm for black founders. So in terms of as long as the proposition in its founding team has one member that self-identifies as black, then you have the opportunity to approach us for some money. We are a community and a fund. We're actually a community first and a fund secondly, and mainly just because the community cost us less money, so we kicked that off first. And then we had the heave of having to actually raise the fund. We are a £10 million fund, of which we've raised 5 million of that 10, and we've backed 3 companies to date. We are industry agnostic, and yeah, domestic.
Hi everyone, it's nice to be here. My name is Dama, pronouns are she, her. I'm one of the partners at Bethnal Green Ventures. And please just do this sign if you can't hear any of us, so we know that we need to just speak up a little. Bethnal Green Ventures has been around for quite some time now. We've existed for 12 years or so. And we largely focus on investing in founders who have really brilliant ideas about using technology to drive positive outcomes for people and planet. And sort of looking at the scope of all of the problems that exist in the world, we do realize as a firm that there's quite a large proportion that is acutely felt by marginalized communities from overlooked backgrounds or underrepresented backgrounds, for lack of a better word, which actively means that we are going to seek out founders who come from different backgrounds, who come from all walks of life, and who have these really brilliant ideas about using technology to really hone down on contributing to a sustainable planet, or more contributing to healthy lives, or a more inclusive society. I've had a really weird sort of career trajectory getting into VC as well. So very happy to talk about how to increase representation and actually talk about inclusion in the sector, because there's a lot of emphasis on diversity, but there isn't enough emphasis actually on how do we actually create a sense of belonging in an industry that is technically still very male-dominated and still incredibly homogeneous. So very happy to sort of talk about this in more detail later.
Thanks, Dama. And then over to you, Remus.
Thanks, Edwin. Morning, everyone. Remus, partner at LocalGlobe. We are, I think, probably one of the oldest European early-stage VCs. It's still quite a new industry, but our first investments go back to almost 20 years ago. It was originally an angel vehicle for Saul and Robin Klein, who are the founders. I've been with the firm for 8 years. We're investing out of LocalGlobe 12. Focus on pre-seed, seed, like you guys, sector agnostic. Our focus is exclusively on outlier founders, and that's kind of our job, is to try and find the tiny, tiny, tiny percent who have the ability and the ambition to build category-leading companies, with a strong belief that outlier founders are very, very different from normal individuals. We've always believed passionately that diversity is a huge benefit for us as investors, and trying to see opportunities that maybe others don't see as a core part of what we do. But yeah, in terms of having any focus on any ethnicity, gender, we don't, but we are very keen to have a positive impact on progressing an industry which is still very white, very male. Exactly where I come from. Just a small side, the other aspect you may have come across is we launched an initiative called Blackout Tuesday, or Blackout Tuesday VC, after the murder of George Floyd. I co-lead that within our firm, and you're all very welcome to come and join us every 3 months. Next one will be our 19th edition. We've crossed paths before, and this is a subject that we actually spent a whole afternoon discussing about 6 months ago. So look forward to discussing, sharing thoughts and ideas.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you so much. What a wonderful panel. Can we just give them a quick round of applause? Thank you so much. I think Deborah asked a question earlier about how many founders, entrepreneurs are in the room. I kind of want to move over to the investors or aspiring investors in the room. Is there anyone here that is curious about venture capital, wants to find out a bit more about capital? Please raise your hand. Okay, great. Okay, so we have a willing audience, an audience willing to hear and learn from what we have to say. So I think the first question would be to the panel, just for those who might not be so familiar with our asset class, might not be so familiar with the investment landscape, is if you could tell us a little bit about what is venture capital and how important is it in our society today? Up for anyone. Who would like to take that one?
I mean, there's so many different sort of definitions going on about now, particularly because we've seen quite a shift in terms of risk appetite, right? So VC, venture capitalism as a sort of asset class for me still means that investors in this space take a bit of a gamble in quite unregulated private markets, right? But if we sort of look into what does that actually translate to, because the percentage of VC as an asset class, as a financing instrument in the grand scheme of things is still very, very small, but it has an outsized impact on people and planet, particularly with sort of the investment decisions that happen so early on, not just ensure that there's an enabling environment for people to actually build products and services that could get to like huge scale. So the sort of incentive for BGV as an investor in this space, particularly with a lens on investing in tech for good, has always been around operating responsibly. So about understanding how do we as investors make meaningful investment decisions so we don't invest into companies that could potentially bring about, the end of democracy in Western society, or do not invest into companies that just increasingly ensure that people who are already marginalized are discriminated against and oppressed even further. So we take a bit of a lens on actually being quite ambitious and curious about investing into relatively nascent technologies that we might not have a huge understanding of what it might look like in 10, 20 years' time, but can spot the sort of potential relatively early to actually say, if we help founders think about tech development responsibly, it can have an outsized, huge positive impact on people and planet. And that's where I feel VC is still the most fascinating sort of asset class to invest in, because we get to work with founders relatively early when they're still at like inception, concept stage, and then sort of help them on their pathway of actually getting them to scale.
Would anyone else like to add?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything there. I think the easiest way to understand how important venture is if you look at the composition of the 10 most valuable, largest companies in the world today. Almost all of them started with venture capital. Sadly, most of them, or all of them, would have been in the US, but it's still very new in terms of, if you take a longer-term view of different sources of capital. But it's fundamental to innovation, job creation in the UK, and I think we're still very, very early in what this asset class will be. And if you take a 10, 20-year view, the size of capital, the number of individuals who are starting up businesses, amazing entrepreneurs who are solving really difficult problems. So, we do quite a lot of work where we look at the number of employees in all of the companies that we've backed over those 15 to 20 years. I think it's over 200,000 in the UK. And these are all seed stage checks. At some point, they've hired huge amounts of people. They've solved some unbelievably difficult problems. They're paying a lot of tax to the government. And they're moving, in many cases, they're moving us off business models or industries that arguably aren't sustainable. So, we're obviously you're preaching to the converted here, but...
Perfect. So moving on, just swiftly on to our next question. So thinking about your own careers, your journeys to this point, maybe we'll start with you, Karl. Talk to us a bit about your journey. Talk to us a bit about how you became an investment professional.
Yeah, no, sweet. I probably took maybe arguably one of the most unconventional routes here. I definitely snuck in through the back door. That being said, I didn't study finance. I haven't worked at a financial institution prior. And ultimately, I saw a need, and I myself, on a human capital level, I've allocated in the past. So I might have seen someone in my community which I knew was able. They had a biochemistry degree but was unable to get a job. So I might make an introduction or socialize them with a group, and then that could enable them, to actually get into some gainful employment. And I did that on a case-by-case scenario for many years. And when national lockdown hit, ultimately, we could see that it was an unfrozen moment, and things would freeze back, and I just didn't want them to freeze over the same. In terms of diversity in this space, it's about 20 years late, So, yeah, we just had at it, When I started, I didn't know the difference between physical education and private equity. PE in terms of an acronym it was a foreign thing to me, So I was just a blunt force object with some lunatics that believed, one of them in the audience, and we just went at it feverishly. We understood that there was a case with the fact that the black entrepreneurial community was a pressure cooker. They are founded yet unfunded, so we're like, there's a clear disparity here, and one that if actually met, would just create good business. So we went from door to door, road to road, street to street, and we drummed up some support. We put our flag in the ground. We had some unusual salutations. Some came from big 400 billion AUM private equity allocators. Others came from the likes of LocalGlobe, that's actually on the stage with us today. And all on all pulled because they understood, that there needed to be an intentionality. That being said, we've stubbed our toe. We learned by doing, but we've had a unique LP composition. I figure myself as a professional asker of help, and I have a unique suite of overqualified, celebrated, investors, of which I have an open channel to. So I'm Mr. Phone a Friend, and we phoned enough friends. And now we've actually been able to make 3 deals. We've done that. I've done some angel allocations myself. And all in all, we're having a good time. I say we because 2 of the members of the team is in the crowd, but yeah.
Thank you so much for that, Karl. And Dama, I know that your, I guess your journey into venture was also atypical. Being a female, being also being not looking like most of the investment committees across the country. Tell us a little bit about your journey and also steps, like practical advice you would give to the audience about how to get into the
Happy
space.
to. So my journey into VC was relatively unusual, but I feel like what I love about the sector as well is that there are more stories like Karl's and mine's coming through, that there is a different pathway into VC, and there's meaningful representation that is coming to the forefront, which is really exciting. But yeah, I didn't do finance either. I studied international relations back in the day with a focus on non-Western traditions, which has absolutely nothing to do with what I do now. But my sort of previous life before B2B and before VC was firmly vested in the sort of social impact sector. So I did a lot of advocacy for getting older people included in the SDG agenda, which was so much fun. If you look through the document, older people are mentioned 8 times in a 145-page document, which took a lot of effort and was just gives me nightmares. But my previous sort of career has always been focused on sort of how do we think about more sustainable aspects of when it comes to addressing social justice issues, and particular positive social and environmental problems that are acutely felt by people who have always been overlooked. And at some point, when I moved to London 10 years ago, I was exposed to this incredible startup ecosystem and tech ecosystem that just sprung out post sort of the Olympics, where literally you go left, right, and center, and there's a meetup with startup founders just talking about how they're young, scrappy, and hungry, and just building exciting tech products and services to actually make a change in this world. My experience was quite jaded in the sort of traditional global development and NGO sector of actually seeing tech deployment in frontline services being done really poorly, and came across BGV at one of those meetups. So I went along to the tech meetups that BGV runs, that now I also run, which is sort of coming full circle. And at some point they were basically saying that they're hiring. I was quite interested in joining, but they also were hiring on a blind recruitment process. So they wouldn't be able to see my exceptionally long name on a CV because they wouldn't see a CV up until the point where they've already based me on my competencies for the role that they were hiring for, rather than actually seeing where have I come from and what I have done before, which is incredibly important. And that sort of set the stone for a team culture that is incredibly inclusive. Before I even signed my contract, then Paul, the founder, just took me aside for a coffee and was basically like, you're going to start off here, but we'll see you becoming a partner in like 1.5 years. And it's like, I haven't even signed my contract yet. So, and you're already talking about progression, which is incredibly exciting when you actually see leadership being true to their principles around sort of empowering everyone to progress further as well. So my tip would be to just work out what sort of drive you have and what sort of passion you want to bring into your role as well, because not every investment firm deeply cares about inclusion or even cares about inclusive hiring practices. And it just makes such a difference to be able to sort of see that value alignment as well. And if it also works out to be a job that you thrive in, then all the better.
Thank you so much, Dama. I'm being rushed, so I'm going to have to move through some of the questions that I have. Actually, Remus, one for you. Thinking about your firm, thinking about your LPs in your cap table, as it were, do you think having more diversity-aligned investors in your cap table promotes more diverse investors in your investment committee?
At the moment, the honest answer, Edwin, is I don't think that makes a big difference. We've been quite lucky over the years to have a very long-term LP investor base that sits behind us. The fact that we've been in the market for a long time, the fact that we've made them money, means, I would say, we are not massively influenced in any which way. We're very, very focused on having investors that sit behind us that are aligned with our values, and we've been lucky enough to be able to kind of mold that over the years. Where we're very focused is we want our investors to, if we do our jobs well, we want the beneficiaries of their capital to feel it. And by that I mean pension funds, where we have Railpen, for example, one of the biggest pension schemes in the UK. If we do our jobs well, it's the railway workers, as they retire, that benefit from our work. We've spent the last 3 years building, along with our friends at JP Morgan, we're calling it the Tajiri list, but it's a list of the 100 black or black-aligned sources of capital that are likely to invest in our asset class, because there's a huge, we really want to broaden our investor base to have more of that source of capital. But what we realized is it's actually quite hard to find them, and it's quite hard for them to find us. So we've been working on that, and certainly over the next kind of fund cycle, the more deliberate we can be in helping some of our LPs represent, in that case specifically, the black community. We hope that, again, our work doing well will flow through there rather than just big university endowments, which is where a lot of the pools of LP funding comes from. If it's Harvard, it's the others, and they do some amazing work. But we'd argue there are other communities that may be more beneficial from our returns.
So, and thank you for that, Remus. Do you think then, actually no, I'll ask a slightly different question. The question is, what type of pathways do you think we can create to bring more underrepresentation into the investment committees across our firms? I mean, Karl, at the moment, I'm pretty sure your investment committee is very black, which is a great thing. But how can we help other funds across the country take some lessons from you?
Intention, my man. It's clear that prejudice exists. It's thriving. It's alive and well. And ultimately, whether that be gender-based or racial, I mean, it is definitely prolific. That being said, even if there is let's say a quote-unquote firm that, you know, has been able to mitigate to some extent that prejudice, there's still the reality of proximity, you know, and proximity just means that you're going to look to your left or you're going to look to your right, ultimately. So if those that are spurring out these funds in terms from a founder level, a general partner level, you know, a management team level, are white males, then ultimately to the left and the right of the IC committee, of the investment committee, will be ultimately white males. So I think it's less around, I think the true pressure point is actually acknowledging that that comes from the emerging funds, rather than funds that have already emerged and trying to kind of tip them in a direction, because it might just actually be superficial and more cosmetic, you know, so yeah.
And for the rest of the panel?
So on the sort of investment committee side, I wish there was more data available, because even if we look at sort of the likes of BVCA, there's only like the last time they did sort of a survey of all VC firms in the UK in terms of their composition of investment committees and the investment team at the firm, there's only about 40%, up to 40% of VC firms that actively contributed that data. So we need a bit more, we need a lot more data to be actually to highlight the stark reality of how undiverse and exclusive it actually is. Because we know, and we hear it over the grapevine, but it would be nice to have this data to basically be like, you need to change. That's one. But there are some, so we have an excellent excellent investment committee. One of the members is a non-exec investment committee member who's black, which is great, and that was intentional because they are so incredibly competent, and they are working at a fund that is quite later stage from what we do at BTV, which was so important for us to then get the sort of expertise on how do we think about the growth stages for the companies that we back. So my inkling is also to just not do this for the sake of increasing representation, but truly seek out talent that already exists and not just do this as a tick box exercise to increasingly diversify your investment committees. But there are entry pathways for people as well. So Good Finance, for example, runs a program to basically ensure that more people can actually learn about what investment committees are. And that's definitely a helpful step for anyone who is interested here.
Great, thank you so much. We have run out of time, unfortunately, but hopefully you all enjoyed the conversation. Can we all just give a round of applause to our wonderful panel? Thank you so much. Thanks a lot.